There's a
am not
knock that
going
doesn't ask for
anywhere!
entry.
You
It commands it.
are
That
going
was the
to
sound
jail!
rattling my workshop door on a crisp November afternoon. I was wrist-deep in solvent, restoring my father's old Winchester when the noise hit like a warning shot. I glanced up, muscles tensing, and muttered, "Here we go." Through the window, I saw a man in a cheap suit, clutching a clipboard like it was a badge of honor, his posture screaming overcompensated authority. My name's Caleb Holt, a retired Green Beret instructor who traded battlefields for a quiet life teaching history at Lincoln High in Willow Creek. I'd moved here to mend scars, physical and otherwise, hoping small-town life would be the antidote to a decade of chaos. I was wrong. If you've ever wondered what happens when a scam artist crosses paths with someone who's trained elite soldiers to spot deception, stick around. This tale of neighborly deceit and calculated retaliation is about to get wild. That afternoon, I was in my workshop, a converted shed behind my house, surrounded by the familiar scent of gun oil and cedar. The Winchester, a 1950s heirloom from my father, a Korean War vet, gleamed under my careful hands. He'd taught me discipline, precision, and the value of protecting what's yours. Cleaning his rifle was my ritual, a way to silence the ghosts of missions past. Each motion was deliberate, muscle memory from years of teaching recruits to dismantle and reassemble under pressure. Then came the knock. Not a polite tap, but a pounding that screamed trouble or authority gone rogue. I wiped my hands, checked the security feed on my phone, and saw him, mid-40s, slick back hair, and a suit that looked like it was on loan from used car lot. He was flanked by a woman in a full leather jacket, her expression a mix of boredom and menace. "Caleb Holt," the man barked when I opened the door. "I'm Victor Slade, Willow Creek HOA Compliance Office. We've got reports of unauthorized firearms on your property." His voice dripped with rehearsed authority, but his eyes betrayed him, shifting, uncertain. The woman, introduced as Security Associate Lena Voss, loomed behind him, her badge as shiny as a toy from cereal box. Victor thrust his clipboard forward, papers emblazoned with a logo that looked like it was designed in a hurry. "We need to inspect your firearms storage now," he declared, "to ensure compliance with HOA regulations." I'd faced enough interrogations to spot a fake. The logo was off, pixelated like a low-budget print job. The official letterhead screamed dollar store stationery. "Sir," I said, voice steady, "I'll need to see proper ID and legal documentation before any inspection." Victor's smile faltered, and Lena's hand twitched toward her belt, where a walkie-talkie dangled like a prop. "This is your documentation," Victor snapped, waving the clipboard. "Refuse, and we'll return with a court order and sheriff's deputies." "You don't want that, Mr. Holt." His threat was as hollow as his credentials. I trained soldiers to read body language under stress, and these two were textbook amateurs. Victor's bravado masking panic, Lena's stance betraying inexperience. "I hear you," I replied, "but I'll need to verify this with the HOA. Have a good day." I closed the door, heart steady but senses on high alert. From the kitchen window, I watched them argue, Victor gesturing wildly while Lena scanned the street like a lookout. They climbed into a dented SUV, far from the polished vehicle you'd expect from official enforcement. I grabbed my phone and dialed Martha Tate, the 68-year-old widow next door who'd lived in Willow Creek since its first brick was laid. A former town clerk, Martha knew every bylaw and gossip thread in the county. "Martha, it's Caleb," I said. "Just had some HOA compliance folks at my door wanted to check my guns." "Know anything about that?" Her pause was heavy, her voice low when she answered. "Caleb, we don't have a compliance office. Never did. That man sounds like Victor Slade. He pulled a similar stunt in Oak Ridge last spring." Her words lit a fuse. Victor Slade wasn't just a nuisance. He was a predator. My training kicked in, instincts honed from years of sniffing out threats. "Tell me more," I said, grabbing a notepad. Martha's intel was gold. Victor, a disgraced insurance agent, had lost his license after forging claims. Lena, his rumored girlfriend, had a rap sheet for petty theft. Their company, SureGuard LLC, was registered as Home Aesthetics Group, hardly law enforcement. This wasn't a random shakedown. It was a calculated scam targeting gun owners, likely for theft or extortion. I fired up my laptop, diving into public records with the precision of a mission brief. Victor's trail was a mess. Failed ventures, lawsuits, and $150,000 in unpaid debts. He'd filed 2 false ATF reports in the past year, both dismissed as fraud. Lena's history was murkier, fired from security gigs, now tethered to Victor's schemes. They were desperate, which made them dangerous. As the sun dipped, I leaned back, the Winchester gleaming beside me. This wasn't just about my guns, it was about protecting my home. Tomorrow, I'd start building a trap to bury Victor Slade's scam for good. The next morning, I woke before dawn, the faint hum of Willow Creek settling into my bones. My workshop, still smelling of gun oil and cedar, felt like a war room now. Victor Slade and Lena Voss weren't just con artists. They were hunters, and I was their prey. But I'd spent years teaching Green Berets how to turn the tables on predators, and I wasn't about to let 2 amateurs outmaneuver me. My father's Winchester sat on the bench, a reminder of what was at stake. Not just my guns, but my home, my peace. I brewed coffee strong enough to wake a coma patient and replayed yesterday's encounter. Victor's crooked logo, Lena's twitchy demeanor, and that beat-up SUV screamed small time. But Martha's warning about their Oak Ridge scam suggested ambition. They targeted gun owners, likely banking on valuable collections or compliance from law-abiding types. My military training taught me to know the enemy before striking, so I needed more intel. Step 1. Confirm their operation scope. Step 2. Set a trap. I call Martha Tate again, her number now on speed dial. "Caleb, you're up early," she said, her voice sharp despite the hour. "Figured you'd be digging into this mess." I smiled. Martha was a bloodhound in a cardigan. "I need everything you've got on Victor and Lena," I told her. "Oak Ridge, their patterns, anything." She didn't hesitate. "Victor's a snake. Charmed his way into Oak Ridge with fake HOA papers. Scared folks into paying fines for non-existent violations. Lena's the muscle, or tries to be. They hit 3 homes before someone called the sheriff. No arrests. Victor's slippery, but they vanished after that." Her words painted a picture. Bold but sloppy, escalating with each job. "Any chance they've hit Willow Creek before?" I asked. Martha paused. "Not that I know, but last month, Old Man Carver mentioned a compliance officer sniffing around his place. Didn't think much of it. Carver's half-deaf and paranoid, but it could have been them." That was a lead. I thanked her and turned to my laptop, diving deeper into public records. Victor's paper trail was a goldmine of failure. A shuttered car lot, a scam charity, and a restraining order from a former business partner. Lena's record was thinner: petty theft, a bar fight, and a recent probation violation. But the real jackpot was SureGuard LLC. Its registration listed a P.O. box and a vague, consulting purpose, but a cross-check revealed ties to a defunct company Victor ran in 2023, flagged for mail fraud. Then I found the ATF connection. Victor had filed 2 false reports in the past 8 months, claiming illegal firearms sales in nearby counties. Both were dismissed after investigations found no evidence. The pattern was clear: file fake reports to trigger raids, scope out valuables, then strike later. They weren't just after cash, they were casing homes. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a one-off. It was a heist disguised as bureaucracy. I needed eyes on Victor and Lena. My workshop security camera had caught their SUV's license plate, so I ran it through a contact from my military days, now a DMV clerk. The plate traced to a rental under Lena's name, leased 2 weeks ago. They were mobile, likely bouncing between towns. I also checked social media. Victor had a bare-bones profile, but Lena's was a treasure trove. She'd posted a blurry selfie outside a diner in Willow Creek 3 days ago, captioned "Big job coming up." Amateur move. The diner's timestamp gave me a timeline. They'd been scoping the area for at least a week. By noon, my doorbell camera pinged. There was Victor, now in a navy blazer plaster with fake badges, looking like he'd raided a costume shop. He held a thicker stack of papers, his smirk oozing confidence. "Mr. Holt," he called through the door. "We've got a court order for immediate firearms inspection. Open up, or we'll escalate to law enforcement." I opened the door, taking the order he shoved at me. It was a masterpiece of incompetence, printed in Arial, with a seal that looked like a sticker. The signature, Judge Harlan, was a scrawl so shaky it could have been done by a toddler. Which court issued this? I asked, biting back a laugh. Victor blinked. Willow Creek County Court. Judge Harlan's orders. I knew our judges. Alvarez, Kim, and Patel. No Harlan. We were under Grayson County jurisdiction anyway. I'll verify this with the courthouse, I said, pulling out my phone. Victor's face twitched. You can't interfere with an active investigation, he barked. That's obstruction. Real cops don't panic when you check their papers. They welcome it. I dialed the courthouse, watching Victor squirm. Hello, Grayson County Clerk, I said loudly. Can you confirm a court order from Judge Harlan? Victor stammered. There's a mix-up. I'll fix this at the office. He bolted to his SUV, papers flapping. I stayed on the line, confirming no Judge Harlan existed. The clerk advised, calling the sheriff. Victor's desperation was my opening. I'd bait him back, record everything, and bury his scam before he could hurt anyone else. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Willow Creek, but my workshop felt like a pressure cooker. Victor Slade's panicked retreat confirmed what I'd suspected. He and Lena Voss were amateurs playing a dangerous game, and their desperation made them unpredictable. My years training Green Berets taught me that the best defense is a calculated offense. Victor thought he was hunting me, but I was about to flip the script. The Winchester on my bench gleamed, a silent reminder of my father's lessons. Protect what's yours and never underestimate your enemy. I replayed Victor's fake court order in my mind. Arial font, a laughable Judge Harlan signature, and a seal that screamed clip art. It was bold but sloppy, like their entire operation. Martha Tate's intel and my own digging painted a clear picture. Victor and Lena targeted gun owners, using fake HOA authority to extort fees or case homes for theft. Their false ATF reports were a fallback to trigger raids, letting them scout valuables. My home wasn't random. They'd chosen me, likely banking on a veteran's compliance or a juicy gun collection. Big mistake. I needed hard evidence to bury them. Victor's SUV was long gone, but my doorbell camera had captured his latest performance. I pulled the footage, noting his fake badges and Lena's absence. She was probably lying low after the courthouse bluff. My next move was to lure them back on my terms. I grabbed Victor's business card from the pile of junk he'd left and dialed the number. Voicemail. This is Caleb Holt, I said, voice calm but firm. I've reconsidered your inspection request. Let's resolve this. Come by Saturday at 10 a.m. for an official walkthrough. I hung up, knowing Victor's ego would take the bait. Time to fortify my position. I installed 3 discrete cameras around my property, front door, driveway, and workshop, each with audio and night vision. If Victor and Lena stepped foot here, I'd have them on film committing every felony. I also checked the workshop security feed and found something chilling, a tiny wireless camera, no bigger than a dime, tucked behind a vent. Cheap, off-the-shelf tech, but its presence meant they'd been watching me. They knew my routines, likely cataloging the Winchester and other heirlooms. This wasn't a scam. It was a prelude to robbery. I left the camera in place, careful to block its view when handling valuables. My movements became deliberate, like a soldier in hostile territory. I called Martha again. Found a surveillance camera in my workshop. I told her, Victor's been spying. Can you be a witness Saturday when they show up? Her laugh was pure steel. Caleb, I've been itching to catch a crook since Nixon was president. I'll bring the real HOA bylaws in my old clerk's notebook. They won't know what hit him. Martha's courthouse experience made her a secret weapon. She'd spot every legal flaw in Victor's charade. Next, I reached out to an old Green Beret buddy, now a deputy sheriff named Rick Callahan. Rick, got a situation, I said, briefing him on Victor's scam. They're impersonating HOA officials, planting cameras, and filing fake ATF reports. I'm setting a trap Saturday. Can you be on standby? Rick's voice was grim. Sounds like the Oak Ridge crew. We couldn't pin him last time, but if you've got evidence, I'll bring the cuffs. Keep me posted. His confirmation gave me backup, but I needed to stay one step ahead. Friday night, I prepped the workshop like a battlefield. I moved the Winchester to a locked safe, replacing it with a decoy, a rusted rifle that looked valuable but wasn't. If Victor wanted to catalog assets, he'd get a worthless prize. I also printed Willow Creek's HOA bylaws, courtesy of Martha, highlighting the clause. No inspections without 72 hours written notice and license credentials. Victor's paperwork wouldn't pass a toddler's scrutiny, let alone Martha's. My laptop pinged with a new lead. Lena's social media showed a post from a dive bar in Grayson County, time-stamped last night. She was with a third person, a wiry guy in a security uniform, tagged as Mikey, new hire. Victor was expanding his crew, likely to make Saturday's inspection look legit. Mikey's nervous expression suggested he was a dupe, not a mastermind. I saved the post, adding it to my dossier. Every slip-up was another nail in their coffin. As Saturday loomed, I felt the familiar adrenaline of a mission. Victor and Lena thought they were closing in, but they were walking into a trap. My cameras were live, Martha was ready, and Rick was a phone call away. I sat in the workshop, cleaning the decoy rifle, and thought of my father. He'd faced worse odds in Korea and came home. I'd face Victor Slade and send him packing or to jail. The clock ticked toward 10 a.m., and I was ready to observe, assess, and act. Saturday morning broke with a chill that matched the steel in my veins. My workshop, now a fortified command post, hummed with purpose. Victor Slade and Lena Voss were due at 10 a.m., walking into a trap they couldn't see. My cameras were live, capturing every angle of my property, and the decoy rifle sat on the bench, bait for their greedy eyes. Martha Tate, my neighbor and secret weapon, was ready with her HOA bylaws and courthouse-honed instincts. Deputy Rick Callahan was on speed dial, waiting for my signal. This wasn't just about protecting my father's Winchester. It was about stopping predators before they hurt anyone else. I'd spent years teaching Green Berets to control chaos, and today, that training would bury Victor's scam. His fake court order, surveillance camera, and false ATF reports marked him as desperate but dangerous. Lena's social media slip revealed a new hire, Mikey, likely a pawn to make their inspection seem legit. My plan was simple. Let them incriminate themselves on camera, expose their fraud with Martha's evidence, and hand Rick an airtight case. The clock hit 9:55 a.m., and my doorbell camera pinged. Showtime. Victor's dented SUV rolled into my driveway, followed by a second car, a rusty sedan. Victor stepped out, his navy blazer now sporting more fake badges, looking like a knockoff general. Lena followed, her full leather jacket swapped for a security vest that screamed Halloween clearance. Mikey, the wiry guy from her post, trailed them, clutching a clipboard and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. A fourth person emerged from the sedan, a woman in her 20s, nervous and out of place, introduced as Claire, compliance assistant. Victor was doubling down, banking on numbers to intimidate me. "Mr. Holt," Victor announced, striding to my door with rehearsed swagger. "We're here for the mandatory firearms inspection. You've got no choice. Court order's in effect." He thrust a new stack of papers at me. The order, now in Times New Roman, but still laughably fake. The seal was a sticker, peeling at the edges. I opened the door, guiding them inside to where my cameras would catch every word. "Before we start," I said, holding up my phone, "I'm recording this for my records. No objections, right?" Lena's hand twitched toward her vest, but Victor shot her a look. "That's unnecessary," he growled. "This is an official operation. Recording compromises protocol. Mistake number 1. Real authorities encourage recordings. It protects everyone. Texas is a one-party consent state," I replied, voice calm. "I can record on my property." Mikey shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Claire, who looked ready to bolt. They weren't in on the scam's depth, just props for Victor's show. Martha arrived right on cue, carrying a manila folder and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Caleb, I brought those HOA documents you wanted," she said, eyeing Victor like a hawk. "The real ones." Victor's smirk faltered as Martha stepped inside, her presence shifting the room's dynamic. "Let's see your credentials," she said, opening her folder. HOA bylaws require licensed inspectors with 72 hours notice. Show me your license and bonding. Victor waved his clipboard. This is our authority. Judge Harlan's order. Martha's laugh was pure gold. Son, I spent 30 years at Grayson County Courthouse. There's no Judge Harlan, and Willow Creek's under Grayson jurisdiction. Your order looks like a middle school project. She held up the bylaws, professionally printed and notarized. Says here property owners control personal items, subject only to state and federal law. No HOA inspections without proper notice. Care to explain? Lena's face reddened, and Mikey muttered something to Claire, who looked horrified. Victor pressed on, oblivious to the hole he was digging. We're also investigating unlicensed valuables, he said, eyes darting to the decoy rifle. And there's a $7,500 inspection fee to process compliance. The audacity was almost admirable. Extortion in broad daylight. I kept my phone recording, capturing every felony. Then Lena made a fatal slip. We got this down to a science, she boasted, smirking at Victor. Like an Oak Ridge, scam, catalog goods, come back later. The room froze. Mikey's jaw dropped, and Claire gasped, realizing she'd been duped. Victor's eyes widened, but before he could backtrack, I spoke. Sounds like conspiracy to commit theft. Care to elaborate for the cameras. Martha scribbled in her notebook, her pen moving like a prosecutor's gavel. That's fraud, extortion, and impersonation, she said. Add unlawful surveillance for that camera in Caleb's workshop. Victor's face drained of color. You can't prove that, he snapped, but his voice cracked. I heard sirens in the distance. Rick's timing was perfect. Martha grinned. I called the sheriff when I saw your circus pull up. Recognized you from Oak Ridge's warning bulletin. Victor lunged for the door, but I blocked his path, years of training keeping me steady. Stay put, I said. The real authorities are here. Lena cursed, and Mikey raised his hands, babbling. I thought this was a legit job. Claire nodded, tears in her eyes. The sirens grew louder, and I knew Victor's scam was about to crash. Martha's folder, my cameras, and Lena's slip had sealed their fate. This was my home, and no fake badges would take it from me. This chapter escalates the confrontation, mirroring the original's pivotal takedown scene. It showcases Caleb's trap, Martha's critical intervention, and Lena's incriminating slip, while introducing Mikey and Claire as unwitting accomplices. The 800-word length, military instincts, and community support themes are preserved, setting the stage for law enforcement's arrival. Let me know if you like Chapter 5 or any adjustments. The sirens wailed closer, cutting through the crisp Saturday morning air like a blade. My workshop, now a stage for Victor Slade's crumbling scam, buzzed with tension. Victor stood frozen, his fake badges glinting under the light, while Lena Voss's bravado melted into panic. Mikey and Claire, the duped assistants, pressed against the wall, their faces a mix of confusion and dread. Martha Tate, clutching her manila folder of HOA bylaws, looked like a general savoring victory. My cameras rolled, capturing every second of this takedown. Years of training Green Berets had taught me to stay calm in chaos, and today, that discipline held firm. Victor thought he'd cornered me, but the real trap was mine. Deputy Rick Callahan's cruiser screeched into my driveway, followed by a black SUV with government plates. Rick, a former Green Beret I'd trained with, stepped out, his 6 feet 3 inches frame radiating authority. Behind him were 2 ATF agents, their suits crisp and badges real. The older agent, badge reading Special Agent Torres, scanned the scene with a predator's focus. The younger, Agent Kessler, had a familiar glint in his eye. Caleb Holt, Kessler asked, stepping forward. Fort Bragg, 2018. You taught my unit document fraud detection. Small world. I shook his hand. Good to see you, Kessler. Bad timing for these folks. Victor's face went ashen as the agents entered. Lena clutched her fake clipboard, her earlier boast about cataloging goods, now a noose around her neck. Martha cleared her throat. Officers, I'm Martha Tate, former Grayson County clerk. I've documented 14 violations here, including impersonation, fraud, and extortion. She handed Torres her notebook, its pages brimming with precise notes. Rick raised an eyebrow, impressed. Caleb, you always did pick the best allies. Victor tried to salvage his charade. Officers, thank God you're here, he blustered, pointing at me. This man assaulted my security team during a legal HOA inspection. He's hiding illegal weapons. Torres held up a hand, silencing him. Sir, I'll need your credentials and that court order. Victor thrust his papers forward, but Torres's expression soured as he examined them. Times New Roman? A sticker seal? This is a joke. He flipped to the signature. Judge Harlan doesn't exist. Grayson County's judges are Alvarez, Kim, and Patel. Try again. Martha chimed in, holding up the bylaws. HOA rules require licensed inspectors and 72 hours notice. These two have neither. Plus, they planted a surveillance camera in Caleb's workshop. She pointed to the vent where I'd found the device. Kessler examined it, whistling. Cheap tech, but illegal as hell. You've been spying on a veteran's home, Miss Voss. Lena stammered, we didn't, but Victor cut her off, desperate. She's lying. We're legit. Holt's the criminal. Check his guns. Rick smirked, turning to me. Caleb, you still keep that Winchester locked up like you taught us. I nodded. Safe's in the back, all registered. The rifle on the bench is a decoy, rusted junk. Torres's eyes narrowed at Victor. So you're demanding fees and filing fake reports to steal from law-abiding citizens? He pulled a folder from his SUV, thick with documents. Your SureGuard LLC filed 3 false ATF reports in 9 months. All dismissed. That's a federal crime, Mr. Slade. Mikey, sweating, raised his hands. I swear, I thought this was a real job. They hired me off a flyer. Claire nodded, voice shaky. Same here. They said we were doing insurance checks. Kessler softened. Step outside, both of you. We'll take your statements. They scrambled out, leaving Victor and Lena exposed. Martha's phone buzzed. She'd been texting updates to half the county. Oak Ridge HOA warned us about you, she said to Victor. I called Rick when I saw your SUV. You're done. Lena, cornered, tried a last-ditch play. I've got proof Holt's trafficking weapons. She yanked a folder from her bag, waving blurry photos of me in the workshop. He's got an arsenal. Torres took the folder, flipping through with disdain. These show a man cleaning a rifle in his home. Legal. Your evidence is as fake as your badges. He turned to me. Caleb, you found their camera Friday? I nodded. Set up my own surveillance to catch them. Footage is on my laptop. Victor's knees buckled, but Lena snapped, this is entrapment. Rick laughed. Letting you commit crimes while we record isn't entrapment. It's evidence. He cuffed Victor, reading his rights with practiced ease. Torres cuffed Lena, who glared at Victor. You idiot, you said this was foolproof. Victor's head dropped, his scam in ruins. Martha scribbled furiously, muttering, 15 charges now. Conspiracy's a nice touch. As Rick led Victor to the cruiser, Kessler examined the fake court order. This is the worst forgery I've seen since training, he said, grinning at me. You spotted this a mile away, didn't you? I shrugged. Amateurs make it easy. The ATF SUV's radio crackled. More agents were en route to a storage unit Lena had mentioned in a post, likely holding their scam's blueprints. My trap had worked, but the rabbit hole was deeper than I'd thought. Victor and Lena weren't just local crooks. They were part of something bigger, and I was about to find out how big. The dust settled in my workshop as the last police cruiser pulled away, leaving Willow Creek quieter, but forever changed. Victor Slade and Lena Voss were in custody, their fake badges and forged documents now evidence in a federal case. My cameras had captured every damning word, and Martha Tate's meticulous notes sealed their fate. Deputy Rick Callahan and ATF agents Torres and Kessler had dismantled the scam with surgical precision, but their parting words echoed. This was bigger than Willow Creek. My father's Winchester, safe in its lockbox, felt like a silent witness to the victory. I protected my home, but the fight wasn't over. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Martha sat at my kitchen table, a plate of her famous oatmeal cookies between us. Caleb, you turned this neighborhood into a crime scene and a courtroom in one day, she said, her eyes gleaming with pride. I chuckled, sipping coffee. Couldn't have done it without you, Martha. Those bylaws were a knockout punch. She waved a hand. 30 years at the courthouse teaches you how to spot a fraud. Victor never had a chance. The ATF's raid on Lena's storage unit, tipped off by her careless social media post, had uncovered a treasure trove. Files on 15 families across 4 counties, complete with photos, schedules, and property assessments. Victor's operation wasn't just a scam. It was a prelude to organized theft, targeting veterans and gun owners for their perceived wealth and compliance. The false ATF reports were a ploy to trigger raids, letting them scout homes under the guise of inspections. My trap had stopped them cold, saving countless families from victimization. Rick called that evening with an update. Victor's singing like a canary, he said. Says Lena planned the whole thing, but he's no innocent. His prints are on every fake document. Mikey and Claire are clear. They were hired off a fake job ad. Thought they were doing legit work. I leaned back, picturing Victor's panicked face. What's the damage? I asked. Rick's voice was grim. Federal charges, filing false reports, wire fraud, conspiracy. State charges, impersonation, extortion, unlawful surveillance. Lena's looking at 5 years minimum. Victor's at 3. Restitutions over $200,000 for 6 families they already hit. The next morning, I stood in my workshop, cleaning the decoy rifle that had fooled Victor's greedy eyes. My phone rang. Agent Kessler. Caleb, you made our job easy, he said. Your footage and Martha's notes are gold. We're building a case against a wider network. Victor was a small fish, feeding intel to a bigger outfit in Dallas. I frowned. How deep does this go? Kessler paused. Deep enough that we're keeping your number on file. If you ever want a federal gig, Torres says you're hired. At Lincoln High, I turned the ordeal into a lesson for my history students. Laws are only as good as the people enforcing them, I told my seniors. Morality's your compass when authority's fake. Observe, assess, act. A student raised her hand. Mr. Holt, did you really take down a whole scam? I smiled. Let's just say I had good neighbors. The class laughed, but the lesson stuck. Vigilance is a citizen's duty. Weeks later, Willow Creek's HOA approached me with an offer. Community security advisor, a paid role to protect our neighborhood. I signed the contract with my father's old fountain pen, the one he'd used to write letters from Korea. The ink felt like a promise to honor his legacy and keep Willow Creek safe. Martha, now my unofficial deputy, was already planning a neighborhood watch. No more Victors sneaking in, she declared, her notebook ready for action. 3 months passed, and the prosecutor's office called. Victor had been sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, Lena to 4, with restitution orders for $220,000. The storage unit's files led to 2 more arrests in Dallas, cracking a theft ring targeting veterans. My testimony, backed by camera footage and Martha's notes, ensured the convictions were swift. Mikey and Claire, clear to charges, sent me a thank you note, vowing to check job ads more carefully. That evening, I sat in my workshop, the Winchester gleaming under the light. The scars of my military past felt lighter, repurposed into a civilian victory. I thought of my father, who'd faced worse odds and taught me to stand firm. Willow Creek wasn't just a town. It was a community stitched together by neighbors like Martha who refused to let predators win. As I locked the safe, I realized the skills I'd honed in war, observation, assessment, action, had found a new battlefield. I tell my students this every semester. Know the difference between law and right, and never let a fake badge fool you. Victor and Lena learned that the hard way, thanks to a veteran, a clerk, and a town that stood its ground. My coffee's brewing, and the Winchester's waiting. If you got a story of outsmarting a scam, I'm all ears, shared over a virtual cookie.